Hello there, and welcome to Forgotten Worlds. My name is Thomas, and tonight I'll be your guide through a question that is as old as myth and as bold as science fiction. Take a deep breath, let the day slip quietly away, and imagine with me, what if humanity did not rise entirely on its own? What if, long before history, long before writing or fire, we were touched by hands, not our own hands, that shaped us, guided us, perhaps even designed us? This is not a debate, and we won't be rushing toward answers. It is an exploration, a gentle wandering in the space between science and story, between fossil record and legend. Because when we look closely at our origins, the story is not as straightforward as it first seems. We see sudden leaps where there should have been gradual steps. We find mysteries in our DNA that whisper of something unusual. We uncover myths from every corner of the world that tell of gods or beings who gave us knowledge, fire, language, and purpose. Could those stories be echoes of something real? Could humanity be part of a legacy left behind by an older civilization, one that vanished but left its fingerprints within us? Settle in now. Let your mind loosen its grip on certainty. This is not a race to an answer, but a quiet walk through possibilities. And to begin, we must first look at the mystery of human origins, at the long, winding road from Australopithecus to us. When we trace that long road back, the first figures who greet us are small, upright beings who walked the African savannas millions of years ago. They were not yet human, not in the way we recognize ourselves now, but they carried the first spark of a new way of living. These were the Australopithecines, creatures who balanced on two legs, their hands free to carry food, to hold tools, to gesture in ways that hinted at communication. Imagine standing beside one in the tall grasses, shorter than you, with long arms and a curious gaze, somewhere between ape and human. Their world was raw, filled with predators, with droughts and shifting climates, and yet they survived. From them, we find the first stone flakes, simple edges struck from rocks, crude but revolutionary. To hold a tool is to change the rules of survival. And so, with Homo habilis, often called the handyman, the story of technology truly begins. Picture the rhythm of stone striking stone, sparks jumping, edges sharp enough to cut meat or strip bark. These early hominins were still small, still vulnerable, but their brains were growing. Slowly, unevenly, but undeniably, something was stirring. Not long after comes Homo erectus, the upright man, taller, stronger, a traveler across continents. With them, fire became a companion. Imagine a circle of flickering flames at night, holding the dark at bay. Fire cooked food, made it safer, more nourishing. It gave warmth in cold climates, protection from beasts, light to push back the shadows. With fire, evenings changed. Life was no longer bound by daylight. Around those flames, perhaps, the first stories were born. And then, after hundreds of thousands of years, another leap. Homo sapiens. Us, with rounded skulls, finer tools, art etched into caves, beads strung into ornaments. Suddenly, we see evidence not just of survival, but of imagination. A handprint on stone, left tens of thousands of years ago, still whispers across time. I was here. I thought. I dreamed. Yet, when scientists line these milestones together, a puzzle emerges. The record is not a smooth climb, but a staircase with missing steps. Between Australopithecus and habilis, between habilis and erectus, between erectus and us, there are long gaps, sudden accelerations. For millions of years, brain size crept upward slowly. And then, within a relatively short window, just a few 100,000 years, the human brain doubled. Think about that. For most of life's history, change is glacial, measured in tiny increments. But for us, there is a moment when growth races ahead, when symbolic thought explodes, when art ritual, and language appear almost together. Scientists debate this still. Some suggest climate pressures, forcing adaptability. Others point to social cooperation, the survival advantage of sharing information. But even with these explanations, the speed of our ascent is unusual, even startling. Imagine watching evolution as a slow film, frame by frame. For billions of years, single-celled organisms drift. For hundreds of millions more, reptiles dominate. Mammals creep in the shadows, apes climb through trees, and then suddenly the frames quicken. Fire, tools, language, painting, cities, satellites. The film becomes a blur. Why? That is the mystery. Were we simply the lucky result of chance, our brains wired in just the right way at just the right time? Or was there something more? Could an unseen hand have nudged the process, adjusting the pace, guiding the leap? Even the fossil record itself seems to invite the question. Many species appear, flourish briefly, and then vanish. Entire lineages blink out. Yet ours persisted. Our ancestors carried fragile knowledge across ice ages, droughts, volcanic winters. Other hominins, Neanderthals, Denisovans, Homo floresiensis, lived alongside us, some sharing tools, even interbreeding, and still, only one line remained: ours. What made us different? Was it our adaptability, our capacity for cooperation? Or was it, perhaps, something planted within us, an inheritance not of blood alone, but of intention? Consider symbolic thought, one of the great enigmas. The ability to imagine, to represent the world with marks, sounds, stories. There is no fossil for imagination, no bone that shows when it began, and yet, one day, it is there. Cave walls bloom with animals that seem to move in the flicker of torchlight. Burial sites reveal beads, pigments, offerings, signs of belief, of meaning beyond survival. The world was no longer just what it seemed. It was layered with memory, with spirit, with dream. How did this switch flip? How did a brain designed to gather roots and evade predators become a brain that ponders gods and galaxies? Some neuroscientists suggest it was a gradual rewiring, connections forming across different regions of the brain until complexity tipped into consciousness. But others wonder if there was something abrupt, almost engineered, a mutation, rare but transformative, like a spark in dry tinder. And this brings us back to the questions that drift at the edge of sleep. Could that spark have been guided? Could humanity be the product of not just natural evolution, but of an ancient experiment, a shaping by hands that are now long gone? We may never know for certain. The stones and bones whisper but do not shout. The record is incomplete, scattered, erased by time. Yet the gaps invite us to imagine, to see in those sudden leaps not just the work of chance, but the possibility of design. And so, the mystery of human origins remains, a road of milestones, of missing steps, of questions that linger. And just as we begin to glimpse how extraordinary our path has been, we must turn to the very fabric of ourselves, the code written in every cell, the map of who we are. Because if there are signs of engineering, if humanity truly was shaped by an older civilization, the evidence may not be in stones or myths, but in our very DNA. Inside every cell of your body, folded tighter than any scroll, lies a script billions of years in the making. The human genome is not just a blueprint. It is a library, an archive, a palimpsest of changes written, erased, and rewritten across deep time. Most of the text is not uniquely ours. We share long passages with plants, with bacteria, with the simplest of creatures. But hidden among these shared lines are peculiar notes, insertions, fusions, and sequences that raise quiet questions. One of the most striking is chromosome 2. Humans, unlike our closest relatives, have 23 pairs of chromosomes. Chimpanzees, gorillas, and orangutans all have 24. When scientists traced the difference, they found something astonishing. Our chromosome 2 appears to be the product of a fusion, two ancestral ape chromosomes joined end to end. Where once there were two, there is now one. The fusion site is still visible, like a seam in the fabric, a scar that tells of an event both ancient and unusual. From a biological perspective, chromosome fusions are not impossible. They occur in other species, though rarely with such consequence. But what makes this fusion intriguing is not just that it happened, but what it made possible. The fusion correlates with key changes in brain size and complexity. It is as if, at this critical juncture, evolution leapt forward. Some scientists argue it was a chance event, one that spread because it conferred survival advantage. And yet, one cannot help but ask, what if it was not chance? What if this was an edit, deliberate and precise, made long before we had the language to even describe it? Then there is the FOXP2 gene, often called the speech gene. This stretch of DNA plays a crucial role in language and communication. Mutations in FOXP2 can strip away the ability to form words, to articulate thought. In humans, this gene is unique. Compared to our primate relatives, two tiny mutations set ours apart, and those changes may have been the key that unlocked spoken language. Two small switches, flipped in just the right place, at just the right time. Imagine how different our world would be without them. No songs, no stories, no whispered questions in the dark, just silence. Scientists can trace these mutations back to roughly 200 years ago, just as anatomically modern humans were emerging. The timing is striking. Our throats and tongues were ready, our brains expanding, but without those changes in FOXP2, we might never have crossed the threshold into true language. Was this simply evolution's luck, or could it have been something more? If one were to engineer a species for intelligence, for culture, for civilization, one might begin by altering the way it speaks, the way it shares information across generations. Beyond these, the genome is filled with puzzles. There are sequences of DNA that seem ancient, viral insertions that long ago became part of us. They act like ghosts, fragments of invaders absorbed and repurposed, some regulating our immune system, others influencing pregnancy. Nearly 8% of our genome is made of these viral echoes. And yet, some researchers point out that their arrangement, their survival, and their functions sometimes feel more ordered than expected. Could these be relics of intentional tinkering, tools placed in our code by unseen hands? Other mysteries lurk in what scientists once dismissed as junk DNA. For decades, large portions of the genome were thought to be meaningless, evolutionary leftovers. But the more we study them, the more we find they are not junk at all. They regulate gene expression, shape development, and may even hold keys to diseases we do not yet understand. Some theorists speculate quietly, at the margins, that within this vast non-coding wilderness, there might be signals, patterns, instructions not yet recognized. If you were an ancient engineer, designing a species to endure across ages, would you not leave redundancy, hidden layers, backup codes? Of course, the mainstream view is more cautious. Geneticists see these anomalies as part of the messy, improvisational nature of evolution. Fusion, mutation, viral insertions, these are all natural processes. Extraordinary, yes, but explainable without invoking external intervention. And yet, the question lingers. If life on Earth has been shaped before, if we are not the first intelligence to walk these lands, might their legacy be written into our very DNA? Think about the way we today edit genes. With CRISPR technology, we can snip and paste DNA with increasing precision. We can alter plants to resist pests, animals to glow in ultraviolet light, even correct mutations in human embryos. We are at the dawn of our own age of genetic engineering. And if we can do this now, with just a few decades of knowledge, what might a civilization millions of years ahead of us have done? Perhaps the signs are already here, hidden in plain sight. The suddenness of our brain expansion, the precision of key genetic changes, the strange echoes of viral insertions, all of these might be read as natural or as intentional. We cannot prove one or the other. But lying awake at night, one might wonder, are we the authors of our story, or are we continuing a script that was started long ago? And that brings us to another kind of record, not biological, but cultural. For if our DNA carries whispers of engineering, so too do the myths we have carried in our minds and stories. Across civilizations, from Mesopotamia to Mesoamerica, from India to Greece, there are tales of gods who shaped us, uplifted us, taught us. To explore whether humanity was engineered, we must listen not just to genes, but to myths, because sometimes the oldest stories carry truths science has not yet named. Across the vast library of human culture, long before microscopes and genome sequencing, people told stories about where we came from. They did not speak in the language of chromosomes or ancient fossils. Instead, they painted their truths in myth, in symbol, in memory so old it became legend. And when we place these stories side by side, a curious pattern begins to emerge, a pattern that suggests humanity was not simply born, but made. The Sumerians, among the earliest record keepers, spoke of beings they called the Anunnaki. These figures were described as powerful visitors, descending from the heavens, shaping the destinies of humankind. Some versions of the story suggest that the Anunnaki created humans as workers, fashioning them from clay mixed with the blood of a god. The image is striking, humanity not as an accident of nature, but as a crafted being, designed to serve, to toil, to carry out tasks too menial for the divine. Whether these tales are taken literally or as metaphor, they reflect a deep intuition that we were shaped by hands beyond our own. In the Hebrew Bible, a parallel image appears. Adam, the first man, is formed from the dust of the ground, breathed into by the Spirit of God. Woman, too, is fashioned deliberately, drawn from Adam's side. Here again, we see the motif of intentional creation, humanity as the product of design, not blind chance. And within that design, a spark, the breath of life, the gift of awareness, consciousness itself. In Greece, the Titan Prometheus defies the gods to bring fire to humanity. Fire, in myth, is more than flame. It is knowledge, technology, the capacity to shape the world. It is, in many ways, the beginning of civilization. Prometheus is punished for this theft, chained to a rock, his liver consumed daily by an eagle. Yet the story endures, a reminder that the gifts that set us apart, our tools, our intellect, our restless innovation were not entirely ours to begin with. They were given, or stolen, from a higher source. In the Hindu traditions of India, stories tell of gods who mold the first humans as artisans shape clay. In some versions, the god Prajapati creates mankind from his own body, dividing himself to give rise to all beings. In others, Vishnu and Brahma shape humanity to populate the world, each person a fragment of divine intention. The theme repeats: we are not random, we are crafted, shaped, brought into being by forces far older and greater than ourselves. Across the world, from Mesoamerican to Polynesian traditions, echoes of this motif appear again and again. Humans made from corn, from wood, from stone. Humans gifted knowledge by serpents, birds, or gods in radiant forms. In each case, humanity is not self-created. We are formed, uplifted, taught, guided. What is remarkable is not the individual stories, but their convergence. Separate cultures, separated by oceans and centuries, arrived at similar images, higher beings fashioning humankind from raw material. Knowledge given like a flame or stolen prize, a sense that our intelligence, our language, our awareness did not simply emerge, it was bestowed. Of course, mythology is not science. Myths are shaped by imagination, by fear, by wonder. They explain the unexplainable. They encode social truths. They inspire reverence. And yet, they also preserve memory. Oral traditions can carry fragments of real events across astonishing spans of time. Could it be that these myths are not only metaphors, but echoes of something humanity once witnessed? If an older civilization touched us, uplifted us, engineered us, would not the memory of it remain, woven into our oldest stories? Think of the clay in the Sumerian tablets, the dust in Genesis, the corn of the Maya. Different symbols, but the same essence, humanity shaped by others. And always, there is the gift of knowledge, the breath of life, the fire of Prometheus, the speech and law of divine teachers. These gifts transform us from animals into people. They are not tools for survival alone, but for meaning. So when we hear these myths, we can approach them in two ways. One, as stories invented to explain origins in a pre-scientific age. Or two, as inherited whispers of an older truth that we are part of a design, a continuation of a project not our own. And with that, we move from the act of creation itself to the gifts that followed. For if humanity was made or uplifted, myths also tell us of beings who stayed behind, who taught, who guided. Figures who brought agriculture, astronomy, writing, who shaped not just our bodies, but our cultures. And their presence in myth may hold the next clues to whether humanity was engineered. Among the oldest stories, certain figures stand apart. They are not creators in the sense of shaping clay or breathing life into dust. They are teachers, culture bringers, visitors who arrive already wise, already radiant with knowledge, and who leave humanity forever changed. In Mesoamerican tradition, one such figure is Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent. Unlike many gods of war or storm, Quetzalcoatl is remembered as a giver. He is said to have taught people how to plant maize, how to measure time, how to track the stars across the heavens. Imagine standing beneath the ancient skies of Mexico, watching the Milky Way spill overhead, while priests told stories of the serpent who descended not to conquer, but to guide. To this day, the temples aligned to celestial events seem like stone reflections of that gift architecture and astronomy entwined, as though built with knowledge greater than what we assume of the time. Far to the south, in the Andes, the Inca spoke of Viracocha, a tall figure, often described as cloaked in white, who emerged from the waters of Lake Titicaca. He wandered among the people, teaching them agriculture, laws, and the arts of civilization. And then, just as mysteriously, he departed, walking west across the ocean, promising to return. The echo of this story lingers in the very stones of the Andes, where walls fitted with impossible precision still puzzle engineers today. Were these stories of Viracocha only myth, or could they be a memory of someone, or something, that once walked among them? In Mesopotamia, another tale is told of Oannes. According to Babylonian accounts, Oannes rose from the sea, half man and half fish, bringing writing, mathematics, and architecture to the people. Each day he would emerge to teach, and each night he returned to the waters. In his wake, civilization bloomed. Writing appeared, cities rose, and astronomy flourished. Scholars often interpret Oannes as an allegory, a personification of knowledge itself. But what if he was remembered as he was seen? A being who arrived suddenly, taught, and vanished, leaving behind skills that accelerated humanity's progress far beyond what might have been expected. These teacher gods are scattered across the world, but they share a common shape. They arrive from elsewhere, often from the sea or the sky. They gift knowledge, not weapons. They teach skills that are practical, transformative, farming, writing, astronomy. And then they depart, leaving humanity to carry the torch. The pattern is so consistent it feels almost like testimony. Could these figures be cultural memories of real encounters, remnants of an older civilization that chose not to rule us, but to prepare us? Consider what it means to bring writing to a people without it. Writing changes everything. It fixes memory, turns speech into permanence, allows knowledge to leap across generations without distortion. To teach farming is to anchor a people, to transform them from nomads into city builders. To show the stars is to awaken a sense of time, of cycles, of navigation across seas and deserts. These are not small gifts. They are the cornerstones of civilization itself. If humanity was engineered, then perhaps these myths are not fanciful tales but echoes of a training period. The makers not only shaped our bodies through DNA, but seeded our minds with the tools to survive, to advance, to remember. Like a teacher leaving lessons behind for a student, they may have walked among us until we could walk alone. Skeptics will argue that these stories are simply archetypes. Every culture invents beneficent figures, they say, because it reflects the universal human experience of learning and inheritance. Yet the specific details, gods arriving from the sea, aligned temples, sudden knowledge of astronomy, are harder to dismiss. Why do cultures so distant from one another tell such similar tales? Perhaps it is coincidence. Or perhaps it is continuity, memories carried from an encounter so deep in time that it splintered into myths across continents. If so, then Quetzalcoatl, Viracocha, and Oannes may not be gods at all, but messengers of something far older, fragments of an earlier intelligence woven into story so that their presence would not be lost. And if this is true, then the myths do more than explain origins. They hint at a legacy. They suggest that humanity may be part of a continuum, inheritors of knowledge passed down from teachers who no longer walk beside us. A legacy that still lingers in stone, in story, and perhaps even in our very blood. From here, we move into a more modern framework, where these echoes of myth are reframed as a theory that visitors from beyond, or remnants of an earlier terrestrial civilization, may have engineered us. This is the ancient astronaut hypothesis, a controversial but enduring idea. It asks not only who we are, but who we might have been shaped by, and why those stories have never truly left us. The ancient astronaut hypothesis begins with a simple but unsettling suggestion that humanity was not only visited by advanced beings in the distant past, but that these visitors may have played a direct role in shaping who we are. According to this idea, our ancestors did not invent civilization entirely on their own. They were guided, taught, perhaps even engineered by intelligences far older, far wiser, and far beyond our current understanding. The theory gained modern traction in the 20th century, carried into the public imagination by writers like Erich von Däniken. In his famous book, Chariots of the Gods, he asked provocative questions about ancient monuments and myths. Could the pyramids of Egypt, with their staggering precision, have been built with help from elsewhere? Were the gods described in ancient texts not divine in the spiritual sense, but visitors in physical form, astronauts mistaken for deities by a world that had no other frame of reference? Not long after, Zecharia Sitchin offered his own interpretation, drawn from Mesopotamian myths of the Anunnaki. He suggested that these beings were not imaginary, but real visitors from another world, engineers who altered early hominins, creating humans as a hybrid species to serve as laborers. His vision was bold, controversial, often criticized, yet it struck a chord with readers. It was not just the details that captured attention, but the possibility that our origins might be part of a larger cosmic story. Since then, the ancient astronaut hypothesis has taken on many forms. Some see it as literal, an extraterrestrial presence intervening in our evolution. Others interpret it more metaphorically, as remnants of a lost civilization on Earth, so advanced it seemed alien to those who remembered it. And in modern media, from television series to documentaries, the idea persists, reshaped for each new generation of curiosity seekers. Why does this hypothesis endure? Perhaps because it offers an explanation for the mysteries that still trouble us, the sudden leaps in human evolution, the appearance of complex myths and knowledge at surprisingly early times, the uncanny alignments of ancient monuments with stars and solstices. These anomalies invite speculation, and the hypothesis provides a frame. Visitors, engineers, teachers. It also resonates with something deeper, something psychological. Humanity has always looked upward, to the sky, for answers. To imagine that our ancestors were not alone but guided by beings among the stars feels both humbling and thrilling. It connects our small story to the vast cosmos, suggesting that we are not simply the result of chance, but part of an intentional design that spans worlds. Of course, critics argue that this is wishful thinking, that it underestimates the ingenuity of ancient peoples, attributing their achievements to outsiders rather than their own brilliance. And yet, the idea does not fade. Even as archaeology advances, even as science fills in gaps, the allure of the hypothesis remains. It is not just about pyramids or tablets. It is about the desire to belong to something larger, to believe that our story is woven into the wider fabric of the universe. Imagine lying under the night sky thousands of years ago, with no electric lights, no pollution, just the raw stars spilling across the heavens. To those watching, the cosmos was alive with presence, with movement, with mystery. It is easy to see how visitors, real or imagined, would become gods in story, builders in myth, engineers in speculation. And it is easy to see why, even now, with our telescopes and satellites, we still wonder whether we are following a path laid out long ago. The ancient astronaut hypothesis does not demand belief. It invites imagination. It asks us to look again at the old myths, the strange artifacts, the gaps in our history, and to ask, what if? What if we are not just children of Earth, but heirs to a legacy that began beyond it? And that question leads us to its counterpart, the scientific view, the careful counter-arguments that remind us of the power of natural selection, of the extraordinary within the ordinary. For if the hypothesis is alluring, science insists that we weigh it against evidence, that we ask not just what is possible, but what is probable. From the scientific perspective, the story of humanity needs no engineers from beyond. Evolutionary biology offers a framework that is both elegant and powerful, the mechanism of natural selection. According to this view, the complexity of our brains, the dexterity of our hands, the very shape of our voices, all arise from the long, patient work of adaptation. Random mutations provide variation, and the environment decides which survive. Over deep time, this process sculpts species, favoring traits that bring even the smallest advantage. When seen this way, our sudden leaps may not be as abrupt as they appear. Fossils do not preserve every generation. The record is patchy, broken by erosion and chance. What feels like missing steps could simply be a matter of preservation, not of history. The doubling of our brain size, dramatic on a chart, unfolded across hundreds of thousands of years, an immense stretch by human measure, but a blink in geological time. What feels fast to us may still be natural in the rhythms of evolution. Language, too, has plausible explanations within biology. The FOXP2 mutations may seem improbable, but mutations occur constantly. Most change nothing. Some harm. A rare few transform. When they do, and when they provide advantage such as more precise communication or more complex planning, they spread quickly through a population. From this view, the speech gene is not evidence of intervention, but of natural chance, combined with the immense power of selection. The The same applies to culture. The myth of sudden civilization may be more illusion than reality. Archaeology shows that farming, writing, and architecture did not appear overnight, but developed through trial and error, through thousands of years of incremental steps. The fact that we find moments of rapid change, such as the building of Göbekli Tepe or the flourishing of Sumer, does not require outside help. It requires human ingenuity, persistence, and the long accumulation of knowledge passed from one generation to the next. Scientists emphasize another principle, that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. To say that an older civilization or alien visitors engineered humanity is to make an extraordinary claim. Such claims cannot rest on gaps in knowledge or poetic parallels. They demand clear, testable, undeniable proof fossils with manufactured implants, tools embedded in strata beyond their time, DNA, with signatures no natural process could explain. Until such evidence exists, science places its confidence in what has been observed, measured, and tested. And yet, even within science, questions remain. Why did our brains grow so large compared to other primates? Why do we alone among animals create art that seems to have no direct survival benefit? Why, in the immense span of Earth's history, does complex symbolic culture appear so suddenly, and only once? These questions do not prove intervention, but they remind us of how much we still do not know. There is also humility in the scientific stance. Evolution explains much, but not everything. It does not erase the wonder of what has unfolded, that a chain of mutations, accidents, and adaptations could give rise to consciousness, to music and mathematics, to the ability to imagine both gods and galaxies that is extraordinary in its own right. To call it natural does not make it less miraculous. So here, between hypothesis and counterargument, between myth and science, we stand in the middle ground. We do not have certainty. We have possibilities. One path says we are children of chance, sculpted by Earth alone. Another whispers that we are the heirs of something older, the product of intention. Perhaps the truth lies in places we have not yet thought to look. And as we carry this tension forward, our imagination turns to another possibility. What if the very idea of engineering humanity has appeared before, not only in speculation, but in the stories we tell in fiction and philosophy? For in the realm of science fiction lies an idea known as the uplift hypothesis, and it may offer a lens for thinking about what it means to be shaped by another hand. In the world of science fiction, there is a recurring theme known as uplift. The idea is simple in outline, but profound in implication, that an advanced species might take a less advanced one and accelerate its development. It is not merely teaching or guiding, it is engineering, intentional and direct, the raw clay of one being reshaped into something capable of thought, of culture, of civilization. Writers like David Brin have explored this in elaborate worlds, where dolphins and chimpanzees are genetically uplifted to become intelligent partners in galactic societies. The concept asks, what if intelligence is not always self-made? What if it can be gifted, bestowed, sculpted like fire into dry wood? When we bring this lens back to Earth's deep past, the parallels are striking. Imagine early hominins, Australopithecus, Homo habilis, creatures capable but limited. Then imagine intervention, a spark in their genome, an edit in their brain development, a fusion in their chromosomes. The result is not a new creature from scratch, but an uplifted version of what already existed. A being capable of symbolic thought, of language, of wonder. In other words, us. Speculation whispers here. Could humanity be the result of such an uplift? A genetic experiment designed not to create life, but to enhance it, to take a promising species and accelerate its path toward intelligence. The possibility is both thrilling and unsettling. If true, it would mean that our story is not solely our own. We are not just children of Earth, but of intention. Our creativity, our art, our restless search for meaning, perhaps all seeded by design. And yet, uplift does not erase natural evolution. Even in science fiction, uplifted species continue to change, to adapt, to grow in ways their creators might never have predicted. If humanity was uplifted, we are still shaped by Earth, still products of climate, survival, chance. But layered over that natural history is the question of whether someone or something once chose to push us forward. This idea reframes our sense of place. It suggests that intelligence may not be a rare accident, but a project, a goal pursued across time by civilizations older than we can imagine. Perhaps we are one of many such projects scattered across worlds. Or perhaps we are unique, the sole experiment left standing after countless failures. From a scientific perspective, there is no direct evidence for uplift, but from a speculative one, the signs are tantalizing. The sudden brain expansion, the appearance of symbolic thought, the peculiar quirks of our genome, they can all be read, if one chooses, as markers of intervention. And if humanity is indeed a kind of uplifted species, the next question follows naturally. Uplifted by whom? By visitors from the stars? By remnants of a civilization that rose and fell long before us? Or by something stranger still, something we do not yet have the words to describe? These questions lead us to another thought experiment, one posed not in myth or science fiction, but in modern scientific circles. It is called the Silurian hypothesis, and it asks whether we would even recognize the traces of a civilization that came before us. If humanity was uplifted, perhaps we are not the first intelligent beings to walk this earth. Perhaps we are the latest chapter in a much older story. The Silurian hypothesis takes its name from a work of science fiction, but it has been considered in earnest by scientists, including researchers at NASA. The central question is deceptively simple. If an advanced civilization had existed on Earth millions of years ago, would we even know? At first, it seems obvious. Surely, we would find cities, machines, artifacts buried in stone. But the Earth is not a passive keeper of history. It recycles itself constantly. Oceans open and close. Mountains rise and crumble. Continents drift and collide. Over millions of years, surface traces vanish. Metal corrodes. Plastics break down. Even stone monuments erode to nothing. The deeper the time scale, the cleaner the slate. Consider the fossil record. Even with billions of years of life on Earth, the preserved remains are a fraction of what once lived. Entire ecosystems have disappeared without leaving a trace. Most species never fossilize at all. They dissolve, decompose, or are consumed by others. Fossils require rare conditions: rapid burial, mineral replacement, protection from erosion. Without them, bones and shells vanish like breath in the wind. Now imagine the traces of a civilization. Skyscrapers of steel and glass might crumble in centuries. Roads and bridges, left untended, fade into the soil in millennia. In a few million years, subduction could carry continents downward into the mantle, erasing everything built upon them. In tens of millions, even the scars of quarries and mines could be folded back into the crust. If another civilization had risen long ago, tens, even hundreds of millions of years before us, how much would survive? The answer, scientists suggest, is almost nothing. Perhaps a subtle chemical signature, a layer of pollutants in sediment, a spike of carbon or plastic or radioactive isotopes. Something small but distinct, detectable only with the tools of modern geology. A whisper in the rocks rather than a monument in the desert. This leads to a humbling speculation. If we would struggle to find evidence of a civilization millions of years before us, might the same be true for our own? Imagine Earth 5 million years from now, long after our cities crumble, what will remain of us? A faint layer of plastics in the ocean floor, a spike of carbon in the ice, enough to suggest we were here, but not enough to tell our story. And if this is true, then perhaps humanity is not the first. Perhaps others came before us, intelligent, organized, technological, and were wiped away by catastrophe or by time itself. Their traces recycled, their monuments erased, their knowledge forgotten. If so, then we are inheritors, not pioneers. We are the most recent iteration of a cycle Earth has hosted many times before. It is a haunting possibility. Civilizations rising, flourishing, vanishing, leaving only hints so faint they could be mistaken for natural variation. Humanity might be one in a sequence, not the culmination, but the continuation. And if this cycle exists, then we too will one day fade, our traces buried, our memory carried only in whispers of myth for whatever intelligence follows us. The Silurian hypothesis is not proof, but it opens the door to imagination. It reminds us that Earth is old, staggeringly old, and that in such vastness, our presence is brief. It asks us to consider not only what has been lost, but what might still be hidden, waiting in the rocks, in the DNA, in the stories we tell without knowing their origins. And so the idea of humanity as an engineered species takes on another layer. Perhaps we are not the first experiment, nor the last. Perhaps Earth itself is a laboratory, a stage where intelligence rises, falls, and rises again. And perhaps in our bones and myths we carry not only our own story, but the faintest inheritance of those who came before. When we shift from deep time to the more recent layers of human history, another mystery greets us. The archaeological record does not always tell a story of slow, steady progress. Instead, it sometimes shows sudden leaps, moments when knowledge and complexity appear abruptly, as though carried from elsewhere. Take agriculture. For millions of years, humans lived as hunter-gatherers, moving with the seasons, carrying their lives in memory and story. Then, around 10,000 years ago, farming appeared in multiple regions, almost simultaneously. Wheat and barley in the Fertile Crescent, rice in China, maize in Mesoamerica. These were not simple plants plucked from the wild. They were cultivated, bred, shaped into forms that could feed growing populations. Agriculture transformed humanity, anchoring us to the land, allowing cities to rise. But how did so many different peoples, separated by oceans, discover such complex practices in such a narrow window of time? Was it coincidence or inheritance? The same pattern emerges with writing. Symbols scratched into clay, carved into stone, inked onto papyrus. From Mesopotamia to Egypt, from the Indus Valley to Mesoamerica, writing systems appear not as gradual doodles evolving into alphabets, but as sophisticated structures already capable of recording laws, myths, and mathematics. Writing is a threshold. It is memory given permanence, thought given stone. To cross it is to leap into civilization. But where did the seed of this knowledge come from? Did we truly invent it anew in each place, or was it carried forward, passed down in fragments until it bloomed? And then there are the megaliths, stone circles and pyramids, temples aligned with solstices and stars. Göbekli Tepe, in modern-day Turkey, is among the most haunting examples. Tepe, built over 11,000 years ago, long before cities, before writing, before what we usually call civilization. It consists of massive stone pillars carved with animals, arranged in circles of breathtaking sophistication. Archaeologists struggle to explain how hunter-gatherers, without metal tools or agriculture, created such a site. Who conceived it? Who taught the builders to align stone with sky, to carve in such detail, to design such complexity? Göbekli Tepe feels less like a beginning than a memory, as if its builders were not inventing from nothing, but recalling fragments of something older. Perhaps they were the inheritors of knowledge passed down through stories, myths, or even direct teaching. Perhaps this was the echo of a lesson taught long before, by hands not entirely human. These sudden appearances of farming, of writing, of monumental architecture form a pattern that is difficult to ignore. They suggest that knowledge may not always have been discovered, but sometimes revealed. As though humanity were nudged forward, not in a straight line, but in leaps, each one leaving its mark in stone and soil. Skeptics remind us that human ingenuity is vast, and that independent discovery can occur across cultures facing similar challenges. This is true. But the synchronicity, the suddenness, the sheer sophistication at such early dates, these leave room for speculation. What if the record we see is not just human trial and error, but the residue of inheritance? What if these leaps are the footprints of engineers who once walked beside us, then vanished into myth? The stones cannot answer. They stand in silence, weathered by time, whispering only that they were placed with intention. But in their silence lies an invitation to wonder, to question, to imagine that what we see as beginnings may, in fact, be continuations. And just as some monuments hint at knowledge too advanced for their time, so too do certain objects small, strange, and sometimes controversial. These are known as out-of-place artifacts, or UPARTs. And they raise another unsettling question. Could some of these relics be the scattered tools or remnants of those who engineered us? Out-of-place artifacts, known more commonly as UPARTs, occupy a strange and unsettling place in the story of our past. They are the objects that seem to whisper of a different narrative, one that does not fit the neat arc of progress we have drawn for ourselves. They are discoveries that appear in layers of earth where they should not exist, or that display a sophistication long before its supposed time. Each is a puzzle piece that seems cut from another picture, sparking endless debate, skepticism, and fascination in equal measure. The very term "out of place" carries an almost poetic weight. It suggests not just an error, but a displacement in time, a shard from another story that has somehow fallen into ours. And when these objects surface, whether from the dust of Mesopotamian ruins or the depths of a coal seam, they force us to pause. If they are genuine, what do they tell us? Were our ancestors capable of more than we imagine, or were these items left behind by someone else entirely? One of the most enduring examples is the so-called Baghdad Battery. Unearthed in Iraq and dating back nearly 2 millennia, it consists of a clay jar lined with a copper cylinder with an iron rod set inside. At first glance, it is simple, almost unremarkable. But when modern researchers filled replicas with acidic liquids such as vinegar, they found that the device could generate a weak electrical current. A clay jar transformed into a primitive battery. If true, this would mean that the ancients harnessed electricity long before Benjamin Franklin flew his kite or Edison lit a bulb. But why? For what purpose would a civilization need a battery 2,000 years ago? Some suggest it could have been used to electroplate jewelry, depositing thin layers of gold or silver onto surfaces. Others claim it might have been a ritual object, its magic unknowingly powered by chemical reactions. Skeptics argue it was simply a storage vessel, its potential an accident of construction. And yet, the idea lingers. What if the knowledge of electricity was not discovered in the modern era, but remembered from a deeper, older source? Maps, too, have their mysteries. The Piri Reis map, drawn in 1513 by an Ottoman admiral, remains one of the most controversial. Based on older sources long since lost, it appears to depict the coastlines of South America with a precision unusual for the time. Some claim that it shows Antarctica, not as it is today, cloaked in ice, but as it would appear bare and ice-free, a view that, if true, would require knowledge of the continent thousands of years before it was officially discovered. Mainstream cartographers caution that such claims are overblown, that the map's details are exaggerated or misinterpreted, and yet the question persists. Could fragments of charts from an unknown, older seafaring culture have been copied and recopied until they reached the admiral's hands? If so, whose eyes first saw those coasts? Stone itself carries echoes of mystery. In the temple complex of Abydos in Egypt, high above a lintel, some hieroglyphs appear through erosion, damage, and overlapping carvings to resemble modern machines. A helicopter, a tank, even a submarine. Egyptologists explain these as accidents, layers of inscriptions eroded into chance shapes. But to the speculative imagination, they look uncannily like blueprints of technology that should not exist in that time. Did ancient eyes glimpse something they could not explain, chiseling it into stone as best they could? Or is it simply coincidence, an illusion carved by weather and time? Across the ocean, in Colombia, small gold figurines dating back over 1,000 years have puzzled archaeologists. Known as the Tolima airplanes, these tiny artifacts bear shapes that, to modern eyes, resemble jets more than birds or insects. Some have triangular wings, upright tails, and fuselages that seem aerodynamic in a way natural creatures are not. When scaled up and tested in wind tunnels, replicas were found to display stable flight properties. Were these ornaments pure imagination? Or could they represent memory, an echo of machines once seen in the sky, preserved not as technology but as jewelry? Other parts are even more unsettling. Hammer-like tools reportedly encased in ancient rock, spheres with perfect grooves found in South African mines, dated to billions of years ago. Carvings in Mesoamerican temples that some interpret as astronauts, clad in helmets and suits. Each find sparks headlines, debate, and often dismissal. Some are exposed as hoaxes, others are explained as natural formations. But a few resist easy answers, lingering in the margins like puzzles half solved. Mainstream archaeology urges caution. Human creativity is vast, and pareidolia, the tendency to see patterns where none exist, often misleads us. What looks like a machine may be erosion. What seems like an ancient map may be coincidence. Skeptics argue that attributing these anomalies to advanced visitors underestimates our ancestors, denying them the ingenuity they clearly possessed. And yet, speculation continues, because the allure is irresistible. If humanity was engineered, could these objects be the scattered breadcrumbs of our makers, relics left behind, their purpose forgotten? Perhaps the Baghdad battery was not a lone invention, but a fragment of technology recalled imperfectly. Perhaps the Tolima figurines were not flights of fancy, but miniature tributes to machines no longer seen. Perhaps the Piri Reis map is not proof of a lost continent, but of a lost memory, knowledge handed down from a civilization erased by time. What OPARTs truly reveal is not certainty, but possibility. They remind us that the archaeological record is not complete, that history is a tapestry with frayed edges and missing threads. They invite us to wonder whether all human innovation is truly original, or whether some of it is inherited, knowledge, gifted, remembered, or rediscovered after long ages of forgetting. In their controversy, they serve a greater purpose. They force us to sit with uncertainty, to admit that our story may not be as simple as we tell it, and they prepare us for the larger canvas still to come, the cosmic stage. For if humanity carries echoes of engineering, and if artifacts hint at lost knowledge, then the question extends far beyond Earth itself. We must ask, in a universe so old, so vast, could there have been time for countless civilizations before us? And if so, are we truly alone, or are we part of a much older, ongoing experiment? To truly consider the possibility of engineering, we must step back not just into history or prehistory, but into the immense scale of the cosmos itself. The universe is ancient beyond easy comprehension. Modern science places its age at approximately 13.8 billion years. In comparison, the Earth is a relative newcomer, only about 4.5 billion years old. Humanity, as we know it, has walked this planet for less than 200 years. In cosmic terms, we are younger than a single breath in a long and ancient song. Think about that ratio. For nearly 10 billion years, stars burned and galaxies collided before Earth even formed. Entire generations of stars lived, died, and seeded the cosmos with the heavy elements necessary for life. For billions of years, there was time for worlds to form, for life to emerge, for civilizations to rise, flourish, and fall long before the Earth itself existed. When framed against this backdrop, the idea that we might be the first or only intelligent species begins to feel improbable. If life is possible here, on one rocky world circling an ordinary star, why not elsewhere? And if intelligence can evolve here, why not in other corners of the galaxy? Given billions of years of opportunity, the universe has not been empty. It has been busy, teeming with stars, with planets, with chemical reactions endlessly searching for stability. If even a fraction of those worlds hosted life, and a fraction of that life achieved intelligence, then countless civilizations could have come and gone before we even began. This brings us to the Fermi paradox, a question posed in the 1950s by physicist Enrico Fermi. If the universe is so vast, and if intelligent life has had so much time to arise, then where is everyone? By his logic, if civilizations had emerged long ago, some should have spread across the stars, leaving traces, signals, machines, structures we could detect. Yet when we look into the night sky, we hear only silence. One way to reframe this silence is to wonder whether we are not looking at the paradox the right way. Perhaps the absence of evidence is not because we are alone, but because we are the subject. Instead of asking, "Where is everyone?" we might ask, "What if they are here, but not in the way we expect? What if we are the experiment itself?" Consider how we treat the species we study. When scientists observe animals in the wild, they do not announce themselves. They watch from a distance, sometimes intervening subtly, other times leaving no trace at all. To the animals, the researchers are invisible, yet their presence shapes the outcome of the study. Could humanity be in a similar position, shaped, guided, and observed by intelligences who prefer to remain hidden? It is also possible that civilizations older than ours have already come and gone, erased not by disinterest but by time itself. In the span of billions of years, even the mightiest empire could rise, reach the stars, and fade into dust. If we stood in their wake, we might never know. We might be living in a galaxy haunted not by living neighbors, but by forgotten echoes. And yet, here we are, young, curious, reaching outward. Our radio signals have only been leaking into space for a century, a blink on cosmic scales. Our telescopes scan the sky, our probes wander only to the edges of our solar system. We are toddlers in a universe of giants, asking whether the silence means we are alone, or whether it means we are being quietly observed. The vastness of cosmic timescales allows room for both possibilities. We may be the first intelligence in our galaxy, a rare spark against overwhelming odds. Or we may be part of a grander continuum, one link in a chain that stretches back to civilizations who rose before us and may have had a hand in shaping what we are. When seen this way, the paradox is less a question of absence and more a question of perspective. Perhaps we have not found others because we have been looking outward, when in truth the traces lie within us, in our DNA, in our myths, in the very mystery of our sudden emergence. Perhaps the silence of the stars is not silence at all, but the quiet patience of those who watch, waiting to see what we will become. And this leads us naturally to a sobering companion to cosmic timescales, the Great Filter Theory. If civilizations have had so much time to rise, why do we not see them? One answer is that most do not last. Something stops them. Something filters them out. And if that is true, then we must ask, are we here because we passed that filter, or because someone, long ago, engineered us to endure it? The Great Filter Theory is one of the most haunting ideas in modern thought. It suggests that while life may be common in the universe, intelligent life, especially technological civilizations, rarely survive. Somewhere along the path from primitive organisms to star-faring societies, there lies a barrier. Most never make it past. This filter could take many forms. Perhaps it is biological. The leap from single-celled organisms to complex, multicellular life is far rarer than we assume. Perhaps it is planetary. Unstable climates, asteroid impacts, and supervolcanoes wipe away most attempts before they take root. Or perhaps, most chillingly, the filter comes after intelligence blooms. Civilizations that rise to the point of technology may also rise to the point of self-destruction. Weapons too powerful, resources stripped bare, ecosystems collapsing beneath their own ambition. The silence of the stars may be the silence of civilizations that could not survive themselves. For humanity, the theory is unsettling. It implies that our future is precarious, that our own brilliance may be the very thing that undoes us. But it also raises another possibility. What if we are still here precisely because we were designed to be? If older civilizations once walked this path, they would know the dangers. They would know how easily intelligence tips into destruction. And if they wished their legacy to continue, if they wanted to overcome the filter, they might choose to engineer a successor. In that light, humanity becomes not a lucky accident, but a project, a species designed with resilience, with adaptability, with the capacity to endure where others could not. Our unusually large brains, our complex social systems, even our tendency to create myth and meaning, these could all be tools for survival, meant to carry us through the filter. We may exist not because chance favored us, but because intention shaped us. There is even a speculative idea that older civilizations might have seeded life across the galaxy, not just on Earth. By scattering genetic material or by engineering promising species, they could increase the odds that intelligence would survive somewhere, even if their own world did not. This is sometimes called directed panspermia, life spread deliberately as a way of outlasting catastrophe. If true, then humanity may not just be Earth's child, but part of a cosmic lineage, a legacy of civilizations that refuse to vanish without leaving heirs. It is a sobering thought. The Great Filter suggests that the universe is littered with failed attempts at survival, but it also opens a gentler possibility, that we are here because others cared enough to give us a chance. That in the long silence of the cosmos, our existence is not meaningless, but chosen. Still, the theory carries a warning. If the filter lies behind us, we may be rare, survivors where others fell. But if the filter lies ahead, then the real test has not yet come. Our survival may depend on whether we learn to master our own power, to balance ambition with wisdom, to carry forward the legacy of those who may have made us. And so, the Great Filter becomes not just a theory of absence, but a mirror for humanity. It asks whether we are truly ready to endure, whether we will be the next in a long line of vanishing civilizations, or the first to pass through, carrying the torch into the future. From here, the question turns once again from the vastness of the cosmos back to the intricacies of life itself. For if we were engineered, we must ask, what would it take to design a species? How much knowledge, how much power, how much foresight would be required? In exploring that, we turn not to the stars, but to the code within ourselves, and to the tools we ourselves are only just beginning to wield. To imagine what it would take to engineer an intelligent species, we need only look at the frontier of science today. In laboratories across the world, Researchers now use tools such as CRISPR-Cas9, a molecular scalpel that allows precise editing of DNA. With this technology, we can snip, insert, or rewrite genes in plants, animals, and even human embryos. Diseases that once seemed inevitable can be corrected at the genetic level. Crops can be redesigned to resist drought. Mice can be made to glow with jellyfish genes. With CRISPR, we are no longer just observing evolution, we are guiding it. But compared to the task of creating an entirely new intelligent species, our tools are primitive. DNA is staggeringly complex. 3 billion base pairs in the human genome, coiled into every cell. To engineer intelligence, one would need to understand not just the structure of genes, but the symphony of how they interact, how tiny changes ripple into cognition, memory, language, and imagination. Even with our growing knowledge, much of this remains a mystery. We can alter traits, we can silence genes, but we cannot yet design consciousness. And yet, what we do today gives us a glimpse of what might have been possible for an older, more advanced civilization. If we can already modify embryos, perhaps they could redesign species. If we can already create genetically modified crops, perhaps they could uplift entire lineages of hominins. To them, the human genome would not be an inscrutable labyrinth, but a canvas, a work of art waiting for careful brushstrokes. Think back to the anomalies within our DNA, the fusion of chromosome 2, the sudden mutations in FOXP2, the viral sequences woven into our genome like code inserted into a program. These could all be natural, but they could also, in a speculative frame, be edits, interventions made with a precision far beyond our own. If you wish to accelerate intelligence in a promising species, you would not need to create them from scratch. You would only need to add the right changes at the right time. A fusion here, a mutation there, a nudge in the direction of symbolic thought. The analogy is sobering. We already experiment with altering animals to understand ourselves. Mice are given human genes for brain development. Monkeys are engineered to express proteins linked to memory. Pigs are modified to grow organs suitable for transplant. To us, these are medical and scientific experiments, but from the perspective of those animals, it might look like incomprehensible intervention. Could humanity be in the same position modified long ago without understanding the hands that shaped us? Such engineering would require not only technical power, but vision. To sculpt intelligence is not just to change a body, it is to shape a mind. What traits would you choose to include? Curiosity, creativity, the drive to cooperate. Would you leave flaws, limitations, perhaps even mortality itself, to ensure balance? If humanity was engineered, then our strengths and weaknesses may not be accidental. They may have been chosen. And this leads us to a deeper speculation. What if we are not simply engineered beings, but hybrids? What if the makers did not just alter DNA, but combined their own with ours, creating a lineage that carries both natural evolution and inherited design? Across myths, there are stories of gods mating with mortals, of demigods who walk between worlds. Perhaps these tales are not mere metaphor, but cultural memory of a genetic truth. To step into that possibility, we must turn to the ancient legends of hybrids and giants, of Nephilim and demigods, and ask whether they could be distorted echoes of our own beginnings. Across the mythologies of the world, there runs a recurring theme: the union of gods and mortals. These stories, scattered across continents and centuries, often describe beings who walk between worlds, part human, part divine. They are remembered as heroes, giants, or demigods, and in their lives we glimpse a strange possibility, that humanity itself may be the product of a hybrid origin. In the Hebrew Bible, the book of Genesis describes the mysterious Nephilim. It speaks of the sons of God who came down to earth and took wives among the daughters of men. Their children were giants, renowned for their strength and deeds. Scholars debate whether these passages are metaphorical, symbolic, or remnants of older traditions. But within them lies a tantalizing suggestion that humanity once mingled with beings not quite like ourselves. Greek mythology overflows with such unions. Zeus descends from Olympus in countless forms: swan, bull, golden rain, to father heroes with mortal women. The children of these liaisons, figures like Hercules or Perseus, carry extraordinary power, standing half in the world of men and half in the realm of gods. They are celebrated, but also cursed to wrestle with the weight of dual identity. The motif is unmistakable: divine blood mixed with human, creating something new. In Mesopotamia, kings were often described as part god, their authority legitimized by a lineage that straddled heaven and earth. In Hindu tradition, avatars of Vishnu take human form, blending divine essence with mortal bodies to guide humanity. In Mesoamerica, legends of Quetzalcoatl speak of beings who could appear as both serpent and man, blurring the lines of nature. Everywhere we look, myths remember encounters not of separation but of union, crossings between human and other. If these stories are more than metaphor, what might they mean? One interpretation is that they reflect encounters with an older, advanced species, whether extraterrestrial or terrestrial, whose intervention left traces in our lineage. To a people without the language of genetics, such unions would be described as divine mating, as gods descending to father children. The result, a hybrid species, could carry the resilience of natural hominins and the intelligence of their makers. The possibility is not entirely foreign to science. We now know that modern humans interbred with Neanderthals and Denisovans, leaving fragments of their DNA within us. These hybridizations shaped who we are, affecting immunity, metabolism, even aspects of cognition. If interbreeding with related species could leave such lasting marks, could a more radical form of hybridization have occurred in deeper time, blending us with something beyond earthly hominins? Speculation suggests that this could explain both our sudden cognitive leaps and our sense of being different, set apart from the rest of the animal kingdom. Hybridity would mean we are not entirely one or the other, not fully the product of Earth, not fully the child of the stars, but something in between. A bridge species, a legacy project. And myths may preserve this truth not in literal detail, but in story. Tales of Nephilim giants, of demigods torn between two worlds, of hybrid rulers claiming divine blood. These could be cultural memories of a genetic experiment, echoes of a time when humanity was shaped not only by natural selection, but by deliberate crossing. Such a hypothesis is speculative, yes, but it resonates with a question that lingers beneath all of this. What are we, really? If we are hybrids, then our identity is neither fully natural nor fully artificial. We are the children of both chance and design, carrying within us the paradox of being both animal and engineered. And perhaps it is this paradox that drives our restless creativity, our yearning for meaning, our ceaseless reaching toward the sky. From this point, our attention turns once more to the stones that remain the great monuments scattered across the earth. If myths remember our hybrid birth, perhaps monuments remember the hands that taught us. In their precision, their alignments, their impossible weight, might they carry the signatures of those who engineered us? The ancient monuments of the world rise like questions cast in stone. They are the places where human hands met impossible ambition, where communities labored not just to survive, but to leave a mark upon eternity. Yet when we study them closely, their scale, their precision, and their cosmic alignments whisper of knowledge that seems greater than what we assume their builders possessed. Consider the pyramids of Egypt, vast mountains of stone lifted in an age without pulleys or steel. Each block, weighing tons, was fitted so precisely that even now, after 4,000 years, a blade of grass cannot slide between them. The Great Pyramid of Giza is aligned almost perfectly to the cardinal points north, south, east, west. Its base is nearly a perfect square. Its proportions encode mathematical constants: pi, the golden ratio, the curvature of the earth. Was this the result of extraordinary trial and error? Or did its builders inherit knowledge of geometry and astronomy far beyond their time? Travel east to the megaliths of Baalbek in Lebanon, where stones weighing more than 1,000 tons rest upon one another. These blocks are so massive that even modern cranes would struggle to move them. Why use such colossal stones when smaller ones would suffice? Was it ritual grandeur, or did the builders know techniques of transport and lifting that we have forgotten? Farther still, in the highlands of Peru, the walls of Sacsayhuaman stand with stones carved and fitted like pieces of a puzzle. No mortar holds them, yet they lock together with such precision that they have withstood centuries of earthquakes. The stones are irregular, multi-angled, some larger than a small house. To shape them so perfectly would require not only skill, but a deep understanding of stonework that defies conventional explanation. And then there is Göbekli Tepe, perhaps the most haunting sight of all. Buried for millennia beneath a Turkish hillside, it emerged into light only in the 1990s. Its massive carved pillars, arranged in rings, date back over 11,000 years, long before agriculture, long before writing, long before what we call civilization. Hunters and gatherers, we are told, carved animals into stone, lifted monoliths taller than themselves, and arranged them with symbolic meaning. Yet Göbekli Tepe feels less like a beginning and more like a remembrance, as though its builders carried with them fragments of knowledge from elsewhere, echoes of lessons not their own. Across continents, the pattern repeats. Stonehenge in England, where massive stones align with the solstices, capturing the dance of the sun. The pyramids of Teotihuacan in Mexico, aligned to celestial cycles, their layout mirroring the movement of planets. The Moai of Easter Island, staring inland with solemn faces, their placement connected to both ritual and landscape in ways we are still unraveling. The question is not whether humans built these monuments, they did. The question is how and why, and with what knowledge. Were these purely the result of ingenuity, persistence, and collective labor? Or were they inspired by something older, taught by culture bringers remembered as gods? Speculation suggests that these monuments may be more than human achievements. They could be the fingerprints of engineers' reminders encoded in stone, carrying forward knowledge too fragile to last in wood or parchment. Their alignments to stars may not be coincidence, but testimony. A message linking Earth to the heavens, saying, "Remember who taught you. Remember where you came from." Skeptics caution against romanticizing ancient peoples, arguing that with enough time, effort, and ingenuity, they could accomplish feats that seem impossible to us. And yet, the monuments remain uncanny. They are not just functional. They are symbolic, aligned, mathematical, as if meant to preserve something more than stone. If myths preserve the story of our birth, perhaps monuments preserve the story of our teachers. Together they form a dialogue across time, one spoken in legend, the other etched in stone. And when we step back, we see that these echoes are not confined to one land, but appear across the globe, as if scattered by a single, ancient hand. Which brings us to the next question. Why do so many civilizations, separated by oceans, tell such similar stories and build such similar monuments? Is it coincidence, or is it evidence of a shared inheritance from a forgotten teacher civilization that once walked among us? When we widen our gaze from one region to the entire globe, a striking pattern begins to emerge. Civilizations separated by oceans, by deserts, by centuries of isolation, often told stories that feel uncannily alike and built monuments that echo each other in design and intention. These parallels are difficult to dismiss. Were they coincidences born of human imagination, or traces of a shared inheritance, gifts from a teacher civilization remembered in myth but forgotten by history? Take the pyramid. In Egypt, they rise as geometric mountains of stone, aligned with celestial points, their sloping sides designed to catch the sun. In Mesoamerica, thousands of miles across the ocean, pyramids rise again at Teotihuacan, at Chichen Itza, this time as step structures, platforms for rituals, aligned to solstices and star cycles. In China, too, hidden beneath earthen mounds near Xi'an, pyramids stretch across the land, long forgotten until modern aerial surveys revealed their presence. Though separated by continents, cultures, and time, the shape is the same. The pyramid, a meeting point between earth and sky, between human and divine. Myth follows a similar pattern. In Egypt, gods descend to gift order and knowledge. In Mesopotamia, the Anunnaki shape humanity. In Greece, Prometheus brings fire. In Mesoamerica, Quetzalcoatl teaches agriculture and astronomy. In the Andes, Viracocha walks among the people, raising them from chaos to culture. In Polynesia, Maui fishes up islands and teaches navigation by the stars. The details differ, but the motif remains. Higher beings arrive, bestow gifts, and leave humanity forever changed. Even in the alignments of monuments, parallels abound. Stonehenge in England, aligned with the solstices. The pyramids of Giza, aligned to Orion's belt. The temples of Angkor Wat in Cambodia, mirroring the constellation Draco. The ancient city of Teotihuacan, laid out in reflection of the movement of planets. It is as though, across cultures, builders looked not merely to the land but to the heavens, guided by an instruction written in the stars. How can we explain such parallels? One view is that they reflect universal human impulses. The sun and stars dominate every sky. Agriculture requires knowledge of seasons. Stone is the most enduring material available. From this perspective, the similarities arise from common needs and observations, not from shared origins. But the speculative view invites us to wonder whether something deeper connects them. If there was once a teacher civilization, whether terrestrial or beyond, its knowledge could have spread across the globe, carried in fragments by survivors, remembered in myth, rebuilt in stone. Over time, the details changed, but the core remained. Pyramids rising from earth to sky, myths of gods gifting knowledge, alignments linking human life to cosmic cycles. It is possible that these echoes are the faint fingerprints of a single guiding influence, scattered across continents like breadcrumbs. A story too vast for one culture to contain, preserved instead in 1,000 variations, each one pointing back to the same source. And if so, then our monuments are not only testaments to human ingenuity, but memorials of an inheritance older than we know. They are the echoes of lessons once taught, messages written in architecture and myth to remind us that we are part of something greater. From here, the question grows more intimate. If we were shaped, if we were guided, then why? What purpose would an older civilization have in creating humanity, in gifting knowledge, in leaving behind monuments that endure through millennia? To approach this question, we must turn not just to stone or story, but to motive, to the possible reasons behind our creation. When we ask why an older civilization might have created humanity, we are stepping into the most personal of questions. For it is one thing to wonder how we came to be, and another to ask why. Purpose is more elusive than mechanics. A chromosome can be measured, a monument dated, a fossil compared. But motive lives in silence, in speculation, in the hints left behind in myth and memory. Across cultures, creation stories offer us glimpses into possible motives. Again and again, they suggest that humanity's role was not self-chosen, but assigned. In the Sumerian Enuma Elish, the gods grow weary of labor. The younger deities complain of their burden, toiling endlessly to maintain order in the cosmos. To resolve this, the god Enki and the goddess Ninhursag fashion humans out of clay and divine blood. We are, in this telling, a labor force, beings born not of freedom but of necessity, our purpose tied to the will of our makers. The Hebrew Bible reflects a softer but parallel theme. Humanity is shaped from dust, placed within Eden, and tasked with tending the garden. Though framed as stewardship, it is still service. We are caretakers of a world not of our making, gardeners in a vast design. In return, we receive the breath of life, consciousness, the spark of the divine. It is a covenant of labor and gift, obligation and blessing. Other traditions carry the same motif in different colors. In Greek mythology, Prometheus shapes humans out of clay, and Athena breathes life into them. The gods are amused, but also cautious, placing boundaries between humanity and divinity. When Prometheus later gifts fire, knowledge, technology, the power to shape the world, he is punished, and by extension, humanity is marked with suffering. Here we see a more complex motive, curiosity and creation mingled with control, as though humans were meant to exist, but not to rise too high. In Mesoamerican myths, particularly those of the Maya, the gods create humans several times before settling on corn as the substance of flesh. Earlier versions, made of wood and mud, are deemed failures. These humans cannot worship, cannot remember their makers, and so they are destroyed. Only the corn people endure, beings whose very bodies are made from the sacred food that sustains life. This story suggests a different motive. Humanity created not only for labor, but for reverence, for relationship, for the act of remembering the gods through ritual and offering. From these stories, three broad motives emerge. First, utility. Humanity as workers, laborers, caretakers, an engineered species designed to serve, to perform tasks unworthy of the gods themselves. In this view, our endurance, our adaptability, even our ingenuity are tools for survival, harnessed for a purpose outside ourselves. Second, curiosity. Humanity as an experiment, a project born of divine or advanced curiosity. What would happen if clay were given breath, if corn were shaped into flesh, if genes were fused into new forms? In this lens, we are subjects of exploration, an unfolding question in the laboratory of Earth. Third, legacy. Humanity as heirs, created not out of need but out of foresight. If our makers knew that civilizations fall, that even the mightiest cultures crumble into dust, perhaps they chose to seed the future with successors. We are, in this sense, not servants or experiments, but continuity living vessels, of a knowledge and intention too important to vanish. Modern speculation often frames these motives in terms of engineering. If older civilizations designed us, perhaps they did so to create resilient workers, capable of surviving across ages and climates. Or perhaps they designed us to carry intelligence itself forward, ensuring that even if their world ended, thought and creativity would not. In this light, we are not only children of Earth, but legacies of another story, tasked, whether we know it or not, with carrying a torch. And yet, to consider motive is to invite deeper reflection. If we were created to serve, then our freedom may be illusion. If we were created as an experiment, then our struggles may not be accidents but tests. If we were created as heirs, then our greatest responsibility may be to prove ourselves worthy of what we were given. The myths do not resolve these tensions. They leave us with echoes, with hints, with fragments of purpose scattered across cultures. But together, they suggest that humanity's creation was not arbitrary. It carried intention, and intention implies responsibility, which leads us to an even more difficult question. If we were designed, what obligations did our makers bear toward us? And what moral weight comes with creating life in one's own image? The question of ethics lies at the heart of any act of creation. To design a species is not merely a technical achievement, it is a moral one. If humanity was engineered, then the choices of our makers did not end with chromosomes and cognition. They extended into freedom, limitation, and flaw. And so we must ask, if we were designed, are we truly free? Or are we bound, quietly and invisibly, by the parameters set into our nature? Myth often hints at this tension. In Genesis, humanity is created with the gift of free will, but also with boundaries, the forbidden tree, the command of obedience. Our first act of defiance, eating the fruit, sets us on a path of struggle, mortality, and exile. Was this a punishment, or was it part of the design all along? To give free will is to give the possibility of failure. To restrict free will is to deny the essence of humanity itself. The paradox is inescapable. Greek stories echo the same dilemma. Prometheus gives fire to humans, fire as knowledge, as technology. But the gods punish him, fearing that humans might rise too high, grow too powerful. The myth suggests that our potential was both intended and feared. We were created to think, but not too much, to build, but not to rival our makers. Were our limits deliberate safeguards, written into our design? This raises another unsettling possibility. Our flaws may not be accidents. Our tendency toward conflict, our fragile bodies, even our mortality, these could have been chosen. In the same way that engineers today design systems with fail-safes, perhaps our makers embedded in us certain restraints. Too much ambition balanced by vulnerability. Too much creativity tempered by the inevitability of death. Flaws as design features, not mistakes. If so, then the morality of our creation becomes complicated. To create a species capable of love, art, and wonder, while also condemning it to suffering and mortality, was this a gift or a cruelty? To engineer beings with freedom but also boundaries, was this responsible or manipulative? Did our makers intend us to flourish or simply to function? These questions are not confined to myth or speculation. They echo in our own scientific choices today. With CRISPR and genetic engineering, we stand at the threshold of shaping other lives. Already, we alter animals for research, crops for survival, embryos for health. The ethical dilemmas we face mirror those we speculate about in our origins. If we create a new species, what obligations will we bear toward it? Will its suffering be our fault? Will its freedom be genuine, or only what we allow? Perhaps this is the deeper meaning hidden in our myths. They are not just stories of gods and humans, but warnings, reflections on the moral weight of creation. The gods who make us also fear us. The gifts we are given come with chains. Our story is one of freedom, but also of boundaries. In this tension, we see not only our possible past, but our own future, as we begin to step into the role of creators ourselves. The ethical dilemma, then, is not abstract. It is alive in us. If we were designed, we are both grateful and questioning. If we were flawed by design, we must wrestle with whether those flaws define us, or whether we can rise beyond them. If we were given freedom, then we must decide how to use it, whether to repeat the mistakes of our possible makers, or to chart a new course. And so the story of our origins folds into the story of our becoming. For even as we ask what morality guided our creation, we must also ask what morality will guide us as creators. Because today, we no longer wonder only if we were engineered, we are beginning to engineer others. And in doing so, we must decide whether we will repeat the patterns of myth or transcend them. If the hypothesis of human engineering were ever proven true, the implications for science would be nothing short of revolutionary. Our entire framework of understanding biology, anthropology, even cosmology, would need to be rewritten. Evolutionary theory, while not discarded, would no longer stand alone. It would remain the canvas upon which life unfolded, but the brushstrokes of intention would be visible across its surface. For over a century, Darwin's theory of natural selection has been the cornerstone of biology, explaining how gradual changes across countless generations sculpt species into new forms. If humanity was engineered, then natural selection was not the sole author of our story. Instead, it was interrupted, redirected, perhaps accelerated by another intelligence. This does not erase evolution, it reframes it. Evolution becomes the raw material, the clay, while the act of engineering becomes the sculptor's hand. The redefinition of humanity would be profound. No longer would we see ourselves solely as the product of chance mutations and environmental pressures. We would be revealed as part of another species project, a legacy not entirely our own. Our genome would not just be a history book of Earth, but a collaborative text, carrying chapters written by others. To realize this would be to realize that we are not purely of this planet, not purely children of randomness, but also of design. The shock of such a revelation would ripple far beyond science. For centuries, we have looked to the stars and wondered if we are alone. To discover that we are not alone, that we have never been alone, would be both exhilarating and terrifying. The silence of the cosmos would no longer feel empty, but heavy with unseen presence. And the myths we once dismissed as metaphor might suddenly read as history, their gods and teachers recast as the engineers who shaped us. Science thrives on paradigm shifts, but this would be a shift unlike any before. It would not merely expand our knowledge, it would uproot our foundations. Questions would multiply faster than answers. Who were our makers? Where did they go? Do they still watch? Did they shape only us, or do other engineered species exist across the galaxy? And perhaps most haunting of all, what purpose did they intend for us, and have we fulfilled it? In practical terms, such a discovery would also unlock unprecedented avenues of research. If our DNA carries signs of engineering, then understanding those edits could reveal capabilities we have not yet tapped. We might discover hidden redundancies, dormant sequences, or safeguards designed to be unlocked under certain conditions. The human genome might hold not only our past, but blueprints for futures we have not yet imagined. The impact on our collective identity would be just as seismic. To know we are part of another civilization's legacy would force us to reconsider what it means to be human. Pride in our independence would shift to awe at our inheritance. We would see ourselves as participants in a story that stretches beyond Earth, a story written across cosmic scales of time and intention. Such a revelation would not diminish us, it might elevate us. For to be designed is not to be lesser, but to be chosen. If humanity carries the fingerprints of an older civilization, then our role is not trivial. We are the continuation of something that refused to end, and perhaps, in understanding this, we would see our own responsibility more clearly, to endure, to create, to become the engineers of tomorrow. And yet, even if the hypothesis of our engineering is false, the story of humanity is no less wondrous, perhaps even more so. For if no older hands shaped us, if no ancient civilization intervened in our rise, then we are the improbable children of Earth alone, the unlikeliest masterpiece of nature. Evolution, blind and indifferent, sculpted a being capable of asking questions it cannot answer, capable of building temples to gods it imagines, capable of gazing into the endless black of the cosmos and wondering if it was ever meant to exist at all. To understand the beauty of natural evolution is to understand its brutality. It is not a straight path but a chaotic dance of survival. For every species alive today, countless others perished, their lineages extinguished in the silent ledger of extinction. Trilobites ruled the seas for nearly 270 million years, only to vanish. Dinosaurs strode across Earth for 150 million years, towering giants who seemed eternal, yet undone in an instant by an asteroid's strike. Mammals scurried in their shadows, insignificant, fragile, and yet when the great reptiles fell, it was the mammals who inherited the world. From the mud and chaos of survival, evolution pressed onward, not with intent but with persistence. Life crawled from the seas onto the land, took flight into the skies, returned again to the oceans in the forms of whales and dolphins. Species rose, flourished, collapsed, each shaped by the endless interplay of mutation and environment. And in this great cycle, one branch of primates stumbled upon something extraordinary. They discovered tools. They tamed fire. They painted animals on cave walls with ochre and ash, images whose beauty still moves us tens of thousands of years later. Our uniqueness does not lie in inevitability, but in improbability. Consider the chain of chance that led to us. A single asteroid, striking Earth 65 million years ago, ended the age of dinosaurs and opened the door for mammals. A series of ice ages forced our ancestors from the forests to the savannas, pushing them to walk upright, to adapt, to survive. Random mutations enlarged our brains, gave us the FOXP2 gene for speech, fused our chromosome 2. Each step was a roll of the dice, an accident of chemistry and circumstance. None of it was planned, none of it destined. And yet, against all odds, here we are, creatures of flesh and thought, telling stories beneath the same stars that watched trilobites crawl and dinosaurs thunder. Even our myths, seen through this lens, are not records of intervention but reflections of awe. When the Sumerians wrote of gods shaping men from clay, or the Greeks of Prometheus gifting fire, they were not describing literal acts of engineering. They were grappling with the sheer improbability of existence, giving story to their astonishment. To be alive is to be improbable. To be conscious is to be miraculous. Myths are humanity's poetry of wonder, attempts to explain with metaphor what reason could not yet grasp. If there was no hand guiding us, then our purpose is not inherited, it is created. Meaning is not a gift handed down, but a flame we kindle for ourselves. We are both fragile and free, accidents of chance, and yet authors of destiny. That freedom itself is a kind of divinity. It means that our choices matter, not because they were written in a plan, but because they are unwritten. Every story we tell, every civilization we build, every work of art and every act of compassion is meaning forged out of chaos. This perspective does not diminish us, it magnifies us. For if no one designed us, then the fact that we exist is even more astonishing. In the blind striving of molecules and mutations, the universe awakened to itself. We are the cosmos become conscious, the earth given voice, stardust contemplating its own origins. Carl Sagan once wrote that we are star stuff, and he was right, but more than that, we are story stuff, meaning stuff, myth stuff. In us, the indifferent laws of physics and the randomness of evolution gave rise to beings capable of awe, love, and longing. Consider the vast improbability. The Earth had to form at just the right distance from the Sun, within the narrow band we call the habitable zone. Water had to remain liquid, the atmosphere thick enough to protect, but thin enough to breathe. Jupiter's gravity had to sweep away many of the asteroids that might have sterilized our world. Life itself had to arise from non-life, a leap so improbable we still do not understand it. And then, against eons of trial and error, intelligence bloomed. If there is no designer, then our existence is the most extraordinary accident the universe has ever produced. In this view, humanity is not diminished by the absence of makers. We are exalted. We are proof that chance, given enough time, can create not only survival, but beauty, not only adaptation, but imagination. The myths that speak of gods shaping us are, in this light, humanity's recognition that existence itself is sacred, even if no hands shaped us. They are the songs of creatures astonished by their own being. So whether engineered or not, humanity is a marvel. If engineered, we are the continuation of an older story. If not, we are the improbable miracle of natural evolution. In both cases, we are extraordinary. We are the children of chaos and time, capable of looking at the stars and asking, why? That question itself, asked by Stardust with a voice, is proof enough of our uniqueness. And yet, even in the naturalist's vision, another mystery lingers. Myths of watchers, custodians, and hidden guides appear across cultures, not always as creators, but as overseers. Could these stories reflect not our beginnings, but our ongoing journey? Could humanity, even if born of chance, still be shaped by unseen presences? Across the mythologies of the world, there are stories not only of creators but of watchers, beings who linger after the act of creation, observing, guiding, and sometimes intervening in subtle ways. These figures are less architects than custodians, guardians who stand just beyond the edges of perception. They appear as angels in biblical tradition, as the watchers in the Book of Enoch, as divine messengers in Islam, as tutelary spirits in indigenous traditions. Though the names vary, the motif is the same. Humanity is not entirely alone. Someone, or something, is watching. In the Book of Enoch, the watchers are described as angels who descended to earth, drawn by the beauty of human women. They are said to have fathered the Nephilim, giants who filled the world with violence, and to have taught humanity forbidden knowledge, metallurgy, sorcery, astrology. For this transgression, they were punished. Yet the story lingers as a warning. There are those who see us, who guide us, who may interfere even now. In Christian and Islamic traditions, angels serve a dual role, messengers and guardians. They do not create humanity, but they stand as intermediaries, shaping events, whispering warnings, carrying out the will of higher powers. Their presence implies supervision, a sense that human history unfolds under watchful eyes, even when those eyes remain unseen. In indigenous traditions, custodianship takes different forms. In many Native American myths, animal spirits act as overseers, guiding humans in balance with the natural world. In Aboriginal Dreamtime stories, ancestral beings shaped the land and then remained within it, still present in rivers, rocks, and stars. These are not distant creators, but ever-present guides, woven into the environment itself. What unites these traditions is the suggestion of continuity. Creation was not a single act followed by abandonment. It was the beginning of an ongoing relationship. If humanity was engineered, perhaps our makers did not simply leave. Perhaps they remained hidden, subtle, influencing the arc of history without revealing themselves. Speculation deepens when we consider the possibility of ongoing intervention. If older civilizations shaped us, why would they vanish entirely? More likely, they would continue to observe, to ensure that their project endured. We may imagine them as scientists monitoring an experiment, or as custodians tending a fragile garden. Their presence would not need to be overt. A small nudge here, a whisper of inspiration there, might be enough to steer the course of our development. This interpretation casts myths of watchers in a new light. Angels, guardians, spirits. Perhaps these were glimpses of ongoing contact, interpreted through the lens of culture. To ancient peoples, they appeared divine. To us, they might appear as advanced beings, careful to remain unseen. The question, then, is not whether they once watched us, but whether they still do. The idea of hidden overseers resonates with modern anxieties and hopes alike. It offers comfort, the thought that we are not abandoned, that someone cares for our survival, yet it also provokes unease. To be watched is to be observed without consent, to live within a system whose rules we do not fully understand. If intervention continues, then how free are we, truly? Do we chart our own destiny, or are we guided along paths chosen long ago? These questions linger, unresolved, carried forward into the modern age. For even now, stories of contact, of hidden watchers, continue. They appear not only in ancient texts but in contemporary accounts of strange lights, unexplained encounters, and whispers of abduction. Could it be that the watchers of old are not gone, but remembered under new names, in new myths? In the modern age, the myths of watchers and overseers have not disappeared, they have simply shifted form. Where once they appeared as angels, messengers, or spirits, today they manifest in the language of unidentified flying objects, extraterrestrials, and abduction narratives. The continuity is striking. Across millennia, humans have told stories of beings beyond us who arrive unbidden, who watch us, who sometimes intervene in ways that are unsettling, transformative, or incomprehensible. UFO lore is filled with accounts of strange lights darting across the night sky, moving with a speed and silence beyond our technology. Witnesses speak of discs, triangles, and glowing orbs, craft that seem to defy physics. For some, these are distant sightings, fleeting glimpses of watchers who remain at the edge of perception. For others, the encounters are closer, more intimate, and often more disturbing. Abduction narratives, reported across cultures, often share common elements. People describe being taken against their will, transported to otherworldly craft, subjected to examinations and procedures. A recurring theme is genetic experimentation, the taking of eggs, sperm, or even embryos, as though the visitors are engaged in ongoing research into human reproduction and evolution. Some abductees describe being shown hybrid children beings who appear part human, part other. The resonance with ancient myths of Nephilim, demigods, and hybrid offspring is difficult to ignore. Skeptics dismiss such accounts as dreams, hallucinations, or cultural fantasies shaped by media. And indeed, abduction narratives often mirror the imagery of the times. But even if symbolic, they echo much older patterns. The gods of antiquity descended to take human partners. The watchers imparted forbidden knowledge. Angels appeared unbidden with messages and tasks. The forms change, but the essence remains. Humanity as observed, guided, and sometimes altered by presences beyond our comprehension. Modern UFO lore also suggests continuity of purpose. Just as ancient myths describe beings who shaped humanity's destiny, contemporary accounts often portray the visitors as deeply invested in our survival. Abductees speak of warnings about environmental collapse, nuclear war, and the fragility of Earth. These messages, whether imagined or real, align with the idea of custodianship, that humanity is not left to its own devices, but is monitored, nudged, reminded of the dangers of self-destruction. Speculation takes this further. If humanity was engineered, perhaps the process did not end in antiquity. Perhaps it continues even now. Genetic experiments described in abduction lore may not be random or malicious, but part of an ongoing project to refine, adapt, or guide humanity through new stages of development. The idea is unsettling, yet it resonates with our own scientific practices. Just as we experiment on animals, guiding their evolution, perhaps we ourselves are still the subjects of a project begun long ago. Seen this way, modern UFO encounters are not anomalies but continuations, today's expression of an ancient pattern. The angels of Scripture, the watchers of Enoch, the gods of Sumer and Greece, all may be remembered under new names. The language has changed, the technology updated, but the story is the same. Humanity under observation, humanity shaped by others, humanity caught in a dialogue with beings whose presence we sense but cannot fully grasp. And so, from ancient myths to modern encounters, the theme persists. Humanity has never stood entirely alone in its own stories. Whether as gods, angels, watchers, or visitors in silent craft, the presence of hidden custodians remains. And if this continuity is real, then it suggests that our story is still unfolding, that we are not the final chapter, but part of a legacy project stretching across ages. If humanity is indeed part of a legacy project, then our existence takes on a profound new meaning. We are not merely survivors of chance, nor solely the children of Earth's long evolutionary march. We are, perhaps, the continuation of something older, an echo of a civilization that once rose to greatness and then fell, leaving its essence woven into us. In this view, our DNA is not just a biological code, but a vessel of memory, carrying forward fragments of a forgotten world. Civilizations, like species, are fragile. They rise, flourish, and collapse. Floods erase cities. Volcanoes bury empires. Time itself erodes even the mightiest monuments. But knowledge, unlike stone, has ways of persisting. It can be whispered into myth, etched into symbols, or most enduringly of all embedded into life itself. If an older civilization foresaw its own end, perhaps it sought to preserve not only its culture but its very being, embedding fragments of its genetic heritage into the species that would come after. In this sense, humanity becomes a kind of cultural immortality. Just as we carry fragments of Neanderthal and Denisovan DNA within us, perhaps we also carry traces of something older, something not easily named. We may be, unknowingly, the children of more than one world. Our intelligence, our creativity, our restless search for meaning, these may be the inheritance of a people who refuse to vanish entirely. The myths of gods gifting knowledge, of teacher beings descending to guide humanity, take on new resonance here. They may not only describe interventions from without, but legacies from within, memories of ancestors so ancient we no longer recognize them as kin. Perhaps the gods were not wholly other, but earlier iterations of humanity itself, passing forward their wisdom in the only way they could, through story, through monument, through our very blood. This idea reframes our role in the cosmos. If we are a legacy project, then our task is not only survival, but remembrance. We are carriers of a flame kindled long before us. The drive to build civilizations, to tell stories, to reach for the stars may not be entirely our own invention, but the continuation of impulses seeded deep within us. We strive because others once strove. We dream because others once dreamed. We are not the first chapter, but the continuation of a story too vast to be lost. Speculatively, this would explain why humanity feels both at home on Earth and yet perpetually restless. We belong here, but we also feel a pull beyond, as though part of us remembers another time, another purpose. We are children of Earth, but also heirs to something older, something that looked to the future and chose to live on through us. In this light, humanity's very existence is an act of defiance against oblivion. We are the answer to the silence of lost civilizations. Their fall did not erase them entirely, it transformed them, carrying their essence forward into us. We are their continuity, their legacy, their living monument. To forget this possibility is to miss the depth of our own identity. And yet, as we consider ourselves heirs to forgotten worlds, another realization emerges. If we carry their legacy, then we also carry their responsibility. What they began, we must continue. What they preserved, we must honor. And as we now stand on the threshold of becoming engineers ourselves, the question arises, will we too create successors, as they once may have created us? Today, as we stand in the 21st century, humanity finds itself in a position eerily reminiscent of the role we speculate about for our own possible makers. For the first time in history, we possess the tools not only to understand the code of life, but to rewrite it. We are no longer mere products of evolution, we are beginning to shape evolution itself. Genetic engineering has moved from theory into practice. With technologies like CRISPR-Cas9, we can cut, paste, and edit DNA with astonishing precision. Diseases once thought untouchable are being corrected at the genetic level. Crops are designed to withstand droughts and pests. Animals are altered for research, medicine, and food. These are not myths or speculative futures. They are realities unfolding in laboratories across the globe. In our hands, the same questions we once asked of gods now belong to us. How much should we change, and to what end? Beyond biology, we have begun to create intelligence outside of flesh. Artificial intelligence, though still in its infancy, already shows glimmers of something uncanny: machines that learn, adapt, and generate. Algorithms compose music, paint images, and converse with us. While not consciousness in the human sense, these creations mark the beginning of a new chapter. Intelligence born not of DNA, but of silicon and code. In them, we glimpse what it means to be a maker of minds. Even the concept of uplift, long the domain of science fiction, edges closer to plausibility. Researchers study the cognitive capacities of animals, exploring whether their intelligence can be expanded through training, brain-machine interfaces, or genetic modification. Dolphins, primates, even corvids show remarkable abilities. To imagine enhancing them further is to imagine creating new kinds of beings, bridges between species. Much as we once speculated humanity might be a bridge between natural hominins and engineered intervention. In all of this, a haunting reflection emerges. Are we becoming what we once imagined our creators to be? If an older civilization once guided us, uplifted us, or even engineered us, then our own steps into genetic editing, AI, and animal uplift are mirror images. We are replaying the same story, only now as authors instead of subjects. And with authorship comes weight. To create is not only to innovate, it is to take responsibility. The myths of old warned us of this. Prometheus was punished for gifting fire. The Watchers fell for giving humanity forbidden knowledge. The gods of Sumer regretted the labor of their human creations. Again and again, the stories remind us, to create life, or to alter it, is to step into dangerous territory. If we are indeed heirs to a legacy project, then perhaps this is the final test, whether we will repeat the mistakes of those who came before, or transcend them. Will we create with wisdom, or with hubris? Will we design new beings as servants, experiments, or playthings, as the myths suggest was once done to us? Or will we learn to create with care, offering freedom, dignity, and purpose to what we make? In this reflection lies a kind of symmetry. Humanity, once the clay shaped by others, is now the potter. Once the student, now the teacher. Once the experiment, now the experimenter. The cycle continues, but how it unfolds depends on the choices we make. For just as our possible makers left their fingerprints upon us, so too will we leave ours upon the future. If humanity was engineered, then our place in the cosmos expands beyond anything we have ever dared to imagine. We are not simply one species among many, the random flowering of evolution on a fragile blue planet. We are participants in a grander design, a thread woven deliberately into the vast tapestry of existence. To be engineered is to be chosen, to be set within a story larger than ourselves, a story that stretches beyond Earth, beyond even the boundaries of our solar system, into the unmeasured distances of cosmic time. In this vision, humanity is not the endpoint of nature's experiment, but a continuation of something older. We are a relay in a race whose starting line lies far beyond our reach. The fingerprints of our makers, if they existed, linger not only in our DNA but in our insatiable curiosity, our drive to build, to explore, to create. Every advance in our history, the taming of fire, the carving of stone, the invention of writing, the decoding of the genome could be seen as echoes of that original intention. milestones in a legacy that did not begin with us but was entrusted to us. The myths of the ancient world may then reveal themselves not as fantasies but as cultural memories, coded into story so that they could survive across millennia. The Sumerian tales of the Anunnaki shaping humanity from clay, the Greek myths of Prometheus gifting fire, the Hebrew stories of watchers who descended and taught forbidden knowledge, these may not be mere metaphors, but distorted recollections of intervention. When the Maya described gods mixing corn with blood to create humankind, or when the Dogon spoke of amphibious teachers descending from the stars, they may have been preserving fragments of a truth too immense to describe directly. Myths become archives of memory, disguised in poetry and parable. To accept this possibility is to embrace a new kind of belonging. We are not orphans wandering through a silent universe. We are heirs of an ancient intention. Our yearning for the stars, our restless quest for meaning, our refusal to accept limits, these impulses may be inheritance, the genetic and spiritual signatures of those who made us. Perhaps we strive because they strove. Perhaps we dream because they dreamed, and they placed that dream within us, so it would not end with them. But within this vision lies humility, for if we were made, then we are not the pinnacle of existence. We are not the summit of the ladder, but one rung among many. There may have been others before us, rising, falling, vanishing into the silence of forgotten ages. There may be others yet to come, built upon what we leave behind. Our role is not domination, but stewardship, to carry forward what was given, to preserve the flame, to ensure that the story continues. Supremacy dissolves, continuity remains. And so the search for our makers becomes something more profound than a scientific inquiry. It is not only about decoding DNA or uncovering anomalous artifacts. It is a spiritual pursuit, a dialogue across time between makers and made. Every telescope turned to the sky, every probe launched into the unknown, every genome sequenced, every myth retold, these are all ways of calling out into that dialogue, of asking the oldest question, why are we here? Perhaps, when we finally understand, we will discover that the line between creator and creation was never as sharp as we thought. The engineers may not be wholly other, but reflections of what we ourselves are becoming. In searching for them, we may be searching for the future version of ourselves, glimpsed in advance, written into the very code of our being. If we were engineered, then we are not the final word of the story. We are its continuation. And the greatest revelation may not be that we were made by others, but that we were made to one day take up their mantle. But if the opposite is true, if we are alone, then the weight of our existence becomes even more staggering. To be the only intelligence to emerge from the great ocean of time, to be the first beings in the universe to ask questions of meaning, purpose, and destiny, is both humbling and terrifying. In this vision, we are not heirs, but originators. We are not the continuation of another's story, but the first chapter in a saga yet unwritten. To be alone is not to be diminished. It is to stand as pioneers at the edge of a vast and silent cosmos. If no ancient hands guided our steps, if no engineers seeded our DNA, then humanity is the first spark of consciousness, the first architects of mind, the first beings capable of shaping life itself. We would be the universe's first engineers. Every tool, every story, every monument, every spacecraft is not inherited but invented, the fruit of a species carving meaning out of chaos. This possibility transforms our present moment into something sacred, for if there were no civilizations before us, then we are the ancestors of all who may come after. The artificial minds we build, the animals we may one day uplift, the children who will inherit distant stars, these will not be accidents but our descendants. The direct products of our choices. We will be their gods, their myths, their origin story. They will look back at us as we look back at the beings of legend, wondering, who made us and why? In this light, every decision humanity makes carries immense weight. How we treat our planet, how we build our technologies, how we balance freedom with responsibility. These choices are not only about survival, but about legacy. Just as we now wonder whether our makers, if they existed, acted with wisdom or hubris, future beings may one day wonder the same about us. Were we careful stewards or reckless experimenters? Did we pass on knowledge or destruction? Did we kindle the flame or let it die in the winds of time? Even our myths, if we are alone, take on a new significance. They are not remnants of memory, but creations of imagination, proof that even without guidance, humanity can invent gods, dream of higher beings, and write stories that transcend its own limits. The myths of clay molded by divine hands, of fire stolen from heaven, of gods who walk among us, are not evidence of engineering, but evidence of wonder. They reveal a species astonished by its own existence, creating narratives to contain the uncontainable miracle of being alive. To be alone is also to be free. No design binds us, no purpose predetermines us, no overseers watch our every step. Our flaws belong to us, as do our strengths. Our mortality is not a safeguard written by others, but the price of evolution's gift. Our destiny is unwritten, waiting for us to author it. This freedom is daunting, but it is also powerful. It means that we are not limited by any blueprint but the one we choose to create. And perhaps this is the greatest gift of all. In a universe that has endured for billions of years without thought or purpose, humanity has arisen to speak, to dream, to imagine. We are the first voices to break the silence, the first minds to gaze into the stars and ask why, the first hands to shape not only our own lives but what comes after. If no one made us, then we are the makers. If no one guided us, then we are the guides. If no one left us myths, then we are the authors of the myths yet to come. In this vision, loneliness becomes responsibility. We are the opening verse of intelligence in the cosmos, entrusted with carrying it forward. Our task is not simply to endure, but to expand to seed thought and imagination wherever life can take root, to ensure that the story of consciousness does not end with us. We are not the children of gods, but the ancestors of them. Humanity's story remains suspended in mystery. Were we sculpted by the blind currents of evolution, improbable survivors of chance and catastrophe? Or were we touched by design, engineered by an older civilization whose fingerprints linger in our myths, our monuments, our very DNA? Perhaps we are both a natural miracle and a living legacy, shaped by time and also by intention. What is certain is that our existence is extraordinary. We are beings who carry the memory of stone and fire, who craft gods out of clay and light, who build machines that think and ships that sail beyond our world. We are the universe, become conscious, a species that not only survives but asks why survival matters. Whether our origin lies in the patient hand of nature or the purposeful hand of engineers, our place in the cosmos is not small. We are participants in a story larger than ourselves, one that reaches backward into the forgotten past and forward into an unimagined future. At the heart of it all lies a question as old as myth. Did we invent our gods, or did our gods invent us? Are the stories of clay and fire, of teachers and watchers, reflections of our imagination, or echoes of truths too ancient to name? To ask this is not to seek an answer carved in stone, but to step into the wonder of being human, suspended between memory and mystery. So let us leave the final image not in science or speculation, but in symbol. Picture a night sky, heavy with stars. Beneath it, a figure kneels, shaping clay with ancient, deliberate hands. The clay takes form fragile, trembling, alive. And as the figure leans close, the clay stirs. It lifts its head, its eyes reflecting the stars above, and for the first time, the clay looks back.